This is a production of ITM Media. Hello to all the race fans here after a pretty exciting, wet, wild, crazy weekend from the Circuit of the Americas. That is COTA there in Austin, Texas. I'm Matt Beamer alongside Preston Luke, finally in studio. Finally, I'm happy that you're here, man. If you're joining us on the Unhinged Sports Network, welcome. If you're joining us on your regular podcast platform or YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. Continued support. We really do appreciate it here at In the Marbles. Preston, how's it going, man?
It's going.
It's just going?
It's life seems busy. I guess that's what happens when you're an adult.
Yeah, that happens from time to time.
You get caught up in a lot of things, and then sometimes you kind of forget maybe what day it is.
You do? Well, yeah, with shift work doesn't help out with that at all.
No, when you're working a few 48 back-to-backs, and then you off a day, and you go back for another 48, and then you kind of start to lose track of really what day it is.
It is crazy, but we're happy that you're joining us, whether on YouTube, like I said, or your podcast platform. We really do appreciate the support and the downloads and the listens. Really do. Before we get started with anything, if you listened to last week's episode 87 on your podcast platform, you would have maybe noticed something weird at the end. And it was the first time in a year and a half that I messed up editing that bad.
It was.
It was a pretty colossal mess up. And when I did the editing, I was switching back and forth between the YouTube editing and the audio editing, and I totally messed it up because I was, flipping back and forth. And if you listen to the audio last week, I'd since corrected it, by the way, but if you listen to the audio like I did going to work, you'll notice a quick behind-the-scene look at what Preston and I talk about between segments. It was pretty funny. If you didn't listen to it and didn't catch it on this week's episode, wait till the end of the year special blooper episode, and we will let you know what that was.
Right.
But Preston, I'm glad everything's going well. What an exciting weekend of racing, to a point.
Yeah, I was going to say to a point.
An interesting, again, learning curve, just like the Bristol Dirt Race, except this time it was a road course, and it didn't meet expectations for everybody unless you were a Chase Elliott fan.
That seems pretty spot on.
Yeah, but we're going to start off with a new segment today, and it's called What You Think. It's where Preston and I, throughout the course of the race weekend, observe each of the major races, whether it be Formula One, Indy, NASCAR, and its three main series, truck, Xfinity Cup, or maybe something else. Mm-hmm. Maybe something else we just got over the weekend and it has to do with auto racing. And we ask each other what you think about this situation and how can it be corrected. And I'll start off, and we'll kind of get you to go and how it goes. And Preston will answer, and then I might answer what my think is. Just a quick little 2 cents, what you think. And my first one it's coming from the Monaco Grand Prix. So your territory. You're
right up my alley.
Right up your alley, man. And it had to do with the pit stop involving Valtteri Bottas. A single lug nut pit stop like they do on Formula One, and usually just all open wheel cars, standard MO, single lug nut, zip it on, zip it off.
Right.
And here's the question. With the single lug nut failing for Bottas, will the single lug nut cause the same issue for NASCAR teams, being that it is a single point of failure?
Yes. I'm going to have to say yes. I mean, so it was, I don't know, this time around it seems like just a freak accident. I don't think I've seen something
I don't think I've ever seen that before in Formula One. I don't think I've seen that
at all, but I don't know.
But now it's a possibility.
Yeah, now it is a possibility. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it could come down to. Did they drill that thing on tightly or something? I don't know, but seeing them constantly just trying, and like that tire changer is just trying, and then they switched guns, and like you just know at some point you're gonna strip the crap out of that thing, and they did show it that one time in like slow motion, and you could just see the metal shards shredding off of the lug nut, and at that point you're just like, there's no way they're not gonna get that thing off now. But
right.
I don't really know what it could. How something like that could happen. I almost kind of like, in my mind right away, I'm thinking to myself, what if it was just like the toe of the tire, the way they have the angle of the tire? Maybe, but I don't think it would work like that. I don't really know what it could come down to, but is that a chance in NASCAR? Absolutely at this point.
And with the 5 lug nuts, at least if one fails to go on, which is still a penalty at the end of the race. And with 5 lug nuts on a stock car, being that it's going from 5 to 1 here for at least the Cup Series next year, you have 5 points of failure at that point. Mm-hmm. If you miss one or fail to secure one on the car, or heck, even one doesn't come off, but that rarely happens. But if one fails to secure, you don't have that problem where the tire might come off. Now you have to make sure, one, the lug nut can come off the car, and then 2, if you put the lug nut on, is it securely fastened in there?
Right.
Because if it's not, it could shimmy its way loose. Then you have an out-of-control wheel, and what's the penalty for that? Is it the same as what it is right now, where it's like, come in, now the crew chief and car chief are probably going to get suspended, and probably the tire changer for that for next race weekend is going to be suspended?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting to think about, seeing, and, it's a shame for Bottas because that ended his race right there. That was it.
Yeah, and he was running very well.
He was.
He was the top Mercedes of the day. And that was just an unfortunate, one of those things kind of like last week where Truex got the lug nut stuck between the jack and causing it not to function.
One of those freak accidents.
Just one of those freak things that it's rare to see in racing, but when you do, it's like, oh, wow, didn't even expect that ever. Mm-hmm. All right, but what you got for me?
Okay, so when you had messaged me about this and gave it the idea, and I kind of was like, I'm kind of confused on what. Then I thought of something. And it goes back to we'll keep it in Formula One. It goes back to qualifying on Saturday. Charles Leclerc, he was on provisional pole, but he was still going for another lap towards the end of the session. And then he got down to near the pool, turns 15 and 16, where we saw a decent amount of cars actually trying to cut, as close as they can to that wall.
Right.
And Leclerc caught the wall and it broke the axle right away, and then he just shot straight through 16 into the barrier.
It's
right
not the first time that I've seen it, and it's not going to be the last time.
No. And I mean, cars were wheel hopping and everything over that. But what I have to ask you is, what do you think? With that happening, they still said that he still gets provisional pole as long as they're able to fix the car. So they could fix the car, but if he were to have a gearbox issue and they would have to replace the gearbox, then he would have to go to the back.
Right.
My thing is, what do you think? Do you think Formula One should keep something like that? So, like, if you crash, even though you're on pole in qualifying, should you still keep your first starting position, say if you were on provisional pole? Should you still keep that even though you wrecked out?
Right. I'm going to go to NASCAR kind of terminology and rule book and idea about this. I know two totally different racing divisions. Mm-hmm. But I've seen in the past where individual would qualify on the pole, during happy hour, get into an accident or something, and have to get repairs done to that car. And I've seen them come back out on the track, pass inspection, pre-race inspection, and placed on the grid because they fixed a car to NASCAR specifications and likings to the point where they didn't have to lose a spot. Now, replacing a drivetrain component such as the engine or the transmission, that's a totally different issue, because then you're just replacing it with a better updated thing than you qualified on.
Right.
A piece of equipment, that is. So I'm okay with that. It didn't really work out for Charles Leclerc, and we'll talk about more about that in our Monaco race review. But it is unfortunate, and I see your point. I kind of see your point. Now, what are your take on that? Do you think Charles should have started on the pole, or should he have been in the back of the grid?
I'm kind of like on both sides of the fence. I can understand if it's in the rule book and you can get a car fixed in time as long as you're not changing an engine or transmission. I kind of get it, but at the same time, that's just the way it goes. You're on provisional pole, but you're pushing for another lap. If you wreck, I mean, that's kind of on you at the same time.
It is, but at the end, but I get their point of view. If you can get the car fixed to the officials' likings, or in this case, the FIA's likings, then it is completely 100% okay with me to put that car back on its starting grid position and proceed on with the race. Regardless of what happened to Leclerc at Monaco, if he would have started on the pole and everything would have worked out fine for him, yeah, I think it would have been an interesting race between him and Verstappen to see what strategy would have played out throughout the race to see what would have happened. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I'm okay with if you could get the car fixed and it meets FIA specifications, or in my neck of the field, NASCAR specifications to get back on the track, and you didn't replace a drivetrain component, I'm okay with the car going back on its original starting position.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I'm okay with it. It was just something that I really thought of, when you would talk to me about, hey, taking a look at things over the weekend.
And this is great.
It stood out to me because it was just crazy, because like even I was in awe and shocked at Leclerc. I was like, man, this is cool. Ferrari's on pole. That's awesome. And then all of a sudden they cut to it and he's already wrecked into the wall. And I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. And I was just like, and of course I didn't really know anything about that rule yet. I knew nothing about it because I'm still kind of fairly new, 2 years in. But when they said, as long as they can get that car fixed, as long as they're not changing out anything with the drivetrain or the engine, they can still. And I was like, okay, I can understand that.
And I'm okay with that rule. I really am. Yeah. And it's been like that, I think, for all major racing divisions, unless you don't change anything drivetrain-wise. Mechanical wise. Well, I wouldn't even go that far as saying mechanical, because the steering arm is mechanical. Mm-hmm. I'm talking like whatever can propel that vehicle down the road. Don't change any of that.
Okay.
All right, and this is what I like about What You Think, because we both have noticed throughout the course of our show, we both have caught things that either of us can talk about and go down the rabbit hole, and I'm sure we still will this episode, because we will go down the rabbit hole and talk about, because it's just one of those things where it was just a crazy weekend. But this is my second one for you. Circuit of the Americas for NASCAR. Keep it on the schedule, or thanks, but no thanks for next year?
No thanks. Sorry, NASCAR.
Why is that?
Well, I said it, I think it was sometime earlier in the year when we were talking about the schedule in general, but as I started to look more and more at it, I started to do a little bit of research in terms of NASCAR racing at certain road courses, whether it's Truck Series, whether it's Xfinity, or whether it's Cup.
Right.
After watching the first truck practice session, it was like watching slow motion with stock cars or trucks, however you want to say it. It doesn't matter. It's all kind of the same thing. So I decided, let me do a little research. So I went, because I know that Circuit of the Americas is more Formula One heavy sports car track.
It is a Formula One track. We've discussed this on the show before. It's like we don't even know what to expect, and our expectations weren't that high.
Because thinking,
when the schedule came out and said Circuit of the Americas, like that's a Formula One track.
Yeah. So I'm thinking during this practice session, I'm thinking, I know that NASCAR wanted to put more road courses in the schedule because fans want to see it, and road courses do kind of bring out some excitement.
They kind of do. I'm not a big fan of them still.
Right. So the trucks, I think they were turning, the fastest lap I had seen most of the session was like a 2 in the 220s, maybe 230. So I was like, okay. So I went and looked it up. The fastest Formula One lap was, I think, run by Bottas at like 1:30. So already we're almost about a minute slower than what a Formula One car would look like, because I'm looking at these trucks going, this is slow motion. This cannot be right.
It did look slow.
And I'm just like, there's no way this is going to be an exciting race. And I'm watching these trucks, and this is in dry conditions. These trucks are sliding all over the place, especially as you come up the hill and you round one, as you're coming down through the S's. And they're just all over the place. It's a relatively flat track through the S's.
Right.
Stock cars are not made, they're made to stay low to the ground, but the wheelbase is not as wide as like an open wheel or Formula One car, or maybe a sports car in general. So, of course, we're going to get the sliding effect, but they also have to drive so slow because they cannot make it through the S's like that. So I'm already thinking there's no way that these races are going to, and of course we'll get into it more when we get into NASCAR, but that's what I was looking at in terms of, it was dry practice session for trucks, and they were running slow. It just looked awful to watch on TV. Now, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going back and looking like when we raced at like Road America or Watkins Glen, even Sonoma, 2.5 2-mile tracks, maybe even a 3-mile. This COTA is like a 3.5, between 3.5 and
3.4 mile.
Yeah, almost a 3.5 mile track. That's a long track, but we're also talking, and I understand that road courses have a lot of turns in them.
Right.
This was 20 turns.
Usually there are 11 for NASCAR.
Yeah, this is just way too many for a stock car series.
Right.
Do we want to venture at other road courses? Sure, why not? But when it stood out to me on the schedule, we're going to go to COTA, I was like, immediately in my mind, there's no way. That's not going to work. And after this weekend's races, like I said, when we get into them, I've already made my mind up. When we get there, we'll get there, but no, thank you.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you there. COTA didn't, and you could blame it on the rain. You could blame it on a number of factors, and I think we'll talk more about the rain. I think your other one is about the rain, but it just didn't do it for me. I gave it a chance. I feel I was good seeing cars on the track for qualifying and practice, but to me, it didn't do it for me. For one, again, I don't like road courses. I'm not a big fan. Keep it to 2, maybe 3 with the Roval, and that's it. But now you're oversaturating it. Now we got Road of America coming up here in a couple weeks. Then we have the Indianapolis road course. Then we have Sonoma. Then we have Watkins Glen. Then we have the Roval. We have a few more road courses to go. It just doesn't do it for me. I'm not a big fan of road course racing. I'd rather see a 5-second lead on an oval in traffic the whole time than a 5-second lead. It was a Formula One race to me in a stock car. That's what I saw. Except it wasn't at some points, and we'll get more into that. You got any more? What you think?
Yeah, I do. So this one has to do with the rain.
Okay.
And we told the audience already, we'll touch more on the rain and NASCAR in general later on. But during the earlier part of the race, when it was starting to rain and visibility was getting poor, and we saw that NASCAR called the race toward the end because they said, these conditions, the rain was dumping for a while, a good bit. And that's what they said. They said, hey, we're going to call it because it's too dangerous.
I was listening to the radio, yeah.
Do you think NASCAR should have stopped the race earlier when they were already having those problems, like when Cole Custer ran right into the back of Martin Truex Jr. down that straightaway after Truex had already run into the back of McDowell?
Okay.
Do you think NASCAR should... What do you think? Do you think it was a good idea that NASCAR let it get all the way to that point? Or should they have stopped the race earlier than that?
Well, I think what NASCAR needs to do is look at how to deal with rain and have a standard for rain at road courses. The tires are fine. You can have that. However, we saw it at Daytona road course earlier this year with rain, and that was drainage issues. Standing water, and even if you have rain tires, don't mix with a stock car. Mm-hmm. Not going in the amount of braking they're doing in the anti-lock brakes that they have. Don't allow a car to control itself in a hydroplane in wet conditions. If they want to go road course racing in the rain, here's what I think they should do. Ensure that the tracks have a good drainage system in order to drain out standing water to where we don't have that, or whereas we can mitigate those problems. I think there's still going to be a problem, but have a good drainage system in place to mitigate those problems. 2, consider ABS brakes on a road course with rain conditions. And it's as easy as taking a NASCAR-approved fuse and putting it in the ABS, and you have ABS. If you take it out under dry conditions, you have no ABS. And it's very easy to tell if you have ABS or not. It's going to be very easy to detect whether a team is using that to an unfair advantage. Or if during the course of a race it starts to rain, approved teams with a NASCAR official looking to put in that fuse in a visible spot, kind of like for the battery boxes. There's a fuse box in there. Put the fuse in. You can clearly see if something's in there or not. And have defrosters on the windows. I heard a lot of drivers. It wasn't mainly the rain. It was the windshield. I can't see out of my windshield.
Can't see out.
Once oil and debris and rubber and whatever got on the windshield and it was raining, it was sticking there. It wasn't cleaning right. The windshield wipers can only do so much, and if you saw I think it was William Byron's, it was just going crazy. Didn't look like it was doing anything. Have a heater system in there to blow hot air from the engine. It's easy to do, I'm sure. And duct it to where you can get that defrost, some type of defrost system to clear that window, because I think that was a big problem there. I mean, you're looking at it out of a few windshields right there, and you couldn't see out of them as it was. And those are just maybe 4 things I could think of right now to help, because I know NASCAR admitted they messed up. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, we messed up bad, and Twitter's letting them have it, and Facebook's letting them have it, and drivers are going to let them have it, and the media and spotters and the owners, and NASCAR's just going to have to sit there and take it. They're just going to have to sit there and take the double blast from the shotgun to the face because they deserve it. They should have learned from Daytona road course. They knew rain could be a possibility, and what if we can implement these small little changes in there to improve on the conditions. Now, road courses at Daytona are lit by lights, which I'm sure helps out with visibility, whereas COTA is obviously not lit with lights. But I think those are a few things that we can do. But should NASCAR have called it? No, I don't even think they should have called it the second time. I think it was it's tough to say if it was a good call or not, because I want to see the end of the race. I want to see if somebody could catch. Kyle Busch was dominating. I want to see if somebody could have caught him, or if Larson could have pulled out the win over Chase Elliott. I don't think they should have called it. I think, with what it was like, some team more laps to go.
I think it was between 10 and 15 to go.
It was a very short amount of time to go in the race.
But between 10 and 15 to go was a long time on
COTA,
course.
Yes.
So,
but I mean, I don't think they should have called it. I don't think they should have.
I do have one more that I just thought of.
Okay, what's one more? And I don't have any more.
That's okay. That's okay. This one just popped in my head, and it kind of goes off of practice here. We know that NASCAR is trying to get back to maybe throwing in some practice sessions here and there, qualifying, which they should have already done that. Like we've already, we've already compared to Formula One, who's still full open for business across the pond. What do you think? NASCAR only giving one practice session to every single series. Do you think that's enough time for just this track in general at Circuit of the Americas? Because there's a difference. There's a fine line between working in a simulator and actually getting on-track, physical on-track time.
Yeah.
Do you think 50 minutes was even enough?
I think if you're going to give teams practice, you should at least give them an hour. Qualify. I think it should be, again, all three sessions, just like kind of like Formula One, where you have your first practice, an hour long, qualify, happy hour, and then race. That's what I think. Are we going to go back there? I highly doubt it. We've opened Pandora's box in the sense of savings. The drivers seem to like it. The teams seem to like the fact that we only go to the track on the day before or the day of, work and then go home. I get it. I'm not in the industry. I can't speak for them. We're going to maybe try to get someone on who's in the industry, like what do they think on it later on in the year. But I will say I would love to see more practice session. Qualifying session comes back. It's exciting. It was good to see Tyler Reddick get a pole. That was great. You would have never seen that if it was just okay, let's see here. Bowman's first, Larson second, Elliott third, Byron fourth, and then down the line. Tyler Reddick would have started 15th or 16th, but now he had a chance to get a pole, and now he's qualified for the Busch Clash there at Daytona. Mm-hmm. Now you're qualified for that, and it was extra incentive, and those were so much fun, and I don't think we're going to get back there anytime soon. However, I do feel that NASCAR can find a way to do it, especially with the next-gen car coming out, which we will get more into that. I have something else for you coming up next week. I got one for you next week.
Okay, yeah, so I had asked that question because, again, I referred back to the first practice session of the weekend, the trucks. And for me, it just seemed like nobody was able to get a decent practice run in because there was just constant caution flags and session was being stopped because trucks are spinning or stalling out everywhere. It just seemed like as soon as we got back to a full green session, it was a red flag was out once again. It's just like, you can't get a decent practice run if you're only going to be able to get one lap in, and then NASCAR's going to say, oh, we got a red flag again because somebody has stopped on the track. And that's where I just thought about it. Like, I just didn't think it was enough practice time for anybody to really get a good grip on it because it's a whole different world going from a simulator to the actual track itself.
Right.
So
it is. Now, that was what you think. Let us know what you guys think out there. Hashtag will be below. What you think, ITM Media. It will be on the screen here on YouTube and on the comments description of this podcast. Let us know what you think.
I think this is kind of like a good segue for fans to maybe throw something at us. Hey, what did you think? Hey, maybe we'll answer it.
Maybe we will. But that was what you think. Opening thoughts. No news. Let's get into the race weekend, shall we?
Let's do it.
Folks, I'm going to take a quick second here and break from the show and remind everybody out there about In the Marbles online store at Teespring. There you can find all of your In the Marbles gear that you need, such as t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and much more. Show everybody out there, whether it's at the NASCAR races or the local short tracks, that you are a fan and avid listener of In the Marbles. All purchases will help In the Marbles bring you more content in the future. If you just head over to inthemarbles.net under the merch tab, there you will find the link to Teespring, or you can head over to teespring.com/stores/in-the-marbles, and there you will find our online store. And during the month of May, if you use code LUGNUT, it will take 20% off your order. So remember, head over to inthemarbles.net under the merch tab, there you will find the link, or teespring.com/stores/in-the-marbles. Again, 20% off if you use code LUGNUT for your entire purchase till the end of May. All right, Monaco Grand Prix. For me, for one, I'm going to say this right now, and a lot of people I think out there will agree with me, and this should have been a what you think. I wish the race would have been ran next weekend during the Indy 500 and Coke 600. I love the fact to wake up on Sunday, watch the Formula One race, a few hours later watch the Indy 500, then a few hours later watch the Coke 600, because I love it. Every year my wife goes, another one. It's like 3 races, 1,100 miles of race, and either get in on board with it or leave me alone.
I completely 100% agree with that.
But the calendar change did not take away from the excitement and prestige that was Monaco, and this is our first time, as we said last week, reviewing a Monaco race on here. Preston, first thoughts and impressions of the Monaco Grand Prix.
I love it. Not only just the race in general, just Monaco. It's just one of those historic deals. It's almost like comparing it to like the Daytona 500 in NASCAR, maybe the Coke 600, just something you look forward to.
I would say it's
year.
more of a Darlington, where it's a driver's racetrack. You need to drive there, it's a crown jewel of Formula One for sure.
Yeah, even though there's not really many places at all to even overtake, it's just one of those things where you have to be on point all weekend long, all the way through qualifying, because where you start is pretty much cementing where you could finish, barring if anybody hits a wall, because
a bad pit stop,
hitting a wall, because there's no room out there in Monaco.
It is,
if you hit that wall,
it's kind of like the equivalent of racing at Dover, where it's like racing in a hockey rink. There's very little out of bounds.
Yeah, very little out of bounds whatsoever. But it's so cool. Monaco's just, like you said, it's a crown jewel. It's just so cool. And you have to, it's just one of those driver's racetracks where you have to be on your game the entire weekend.
Right.
Whether or not if you qualify second or third, you're still up there, but you have to be on top. It is so cool. Qualifying was fantastic.
Yeah,
because, like you said, you have to be on your game 100%. And we saw Charles Leclerc, he was on provisional pole, and he was pushing for that another lap because he wanted to make sure he was going to be up front.
Yeah.
And one slight little mishap, and your day is ruined.
Well, on top of that insult to injury, he was doing his coming out to the grid, I believe he was. Yeah, he was coming out to the grid. Car wouldn't go.
Yep.
You could look on his face. Oh, no. And he's holding his helmet. Oh, no. The drive shaft, they said one of the drive shafts, which makes me want to dig deeper into this, broke. Charles Leclerc, that what you think didn't even matter because he didn't even start the race, and which was very unfortunate. So that gave the pole position to Max Verstappen, who looked like he was going to get the pole anyway during qualifying because he was on a flying lap until Leclerc hit the wall. Well, the rest is history, my friends.
I think this weekend was just, if for anybody other than a Mercedes fan, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air.
It really was. It was great. You hate it for Bottas. I really hate it for Bottas because I like watching Bottas over Hamilton. But you saw the arrogance and the entitlement of Lewis Hamilton this weekend, today at Monaco, because he was stuck behind, I think, Williams, George Russell at one point of the race. He had a bad pit stop. His pit sequence was off. He was stuck behind George Russell. And he was complaining the whole time. How am I stuck behind this guy? Why am I stuck behind this guy? It's like, well, man, you play the hand you're dealt. Either you pass him because he's such a superior driver and superior equipment. He can pass this guy. 7-time champion couldn't pass a Williams.
Yep. It's just one of those tracks where you have to you almost have to kind of time it. Almost like when we referred to it Darlington, when Truex was coming up on lap traffic. You have to time it because there's not really many places to pass, especially in Monaco. Lewis Hamilton should have just timed it out right. You have to figure it out.
And you have to kind of maybe force your way in there.
Right. You have.
And it's like, I'm here, and if they don't know I'm here, we're both going to get taken out, but he's going to see me, and one of us is going to give. It's not going to be me. But Max Verstappen wins that race. Carlos Sainz finishing second in that Ferrari, an outstanding run for him. What exactly he needed and that team needed, replacing Sebastian Vettel this season. It was a great performance for Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, great. And, it's a great rebound for Ferrari with Leclerc not being able to start, because that right there is just no points right there in general. So for them to finish second, that helps in the constructors' standings, but that helps Carlos Sainz as well. That gives them a lot of momentum, especially finishing second at such a prestigious event on the Formula One calendar.
Very happy with that. And the third podium finisher, very happy about this, Lando Norris in that McLaren.
And he just recently signed an extension with McLaren as well.
What a great turnaround that McLaren team has had. I remember when they started and they had Alonso and I forget the other driver. They were the equivalent to what Haas is now. Not finishing races, not running well, not making it out of Q1. They were not doing great. Now they are a serious contender, maybe not for a championship, constructors championship, but for a second place, a third place, to battle those Ferraris
and the Red Bulls,
and maybe the Red Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say Mercedes, because even though Mercedes is now in second in the constructors championship, they had a bad day. Don't expect that to happen in Baku.
No, absolutely not. I think Mercedes is more set up for. They're more of like a straight line speed. So Mercedes tends to have better straight line speed than maybe, say, Red Bull does.
But then that's a single point of failure. We talked about that during the lug nut. If you have a single point of failure and teams find that chink in the armor, force them to go wide. Force him to get in that dirty air. Mm-hmm. Force Hamilton to complain. Why is he behind? Why is he in front of me? Why is he blocking me? Maybe people have just had enough of that. I'm just spitballing here. About that. But Hamilton, speaking of Hamilton, finishing seventh, but you were right, the qualifying was fun to watch. The whole weekend in general was fun to watch. Monaco is always fun to watch. Again, I wish it was during the Memorial Day weekend. It was, because I like that. It's tradition. Maybe next year we'll have it. I think it's probably because of still COVID shakeup over there in Europe that they had it. But glad to see it anyway. I rated the Formula One race an 8.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of drama in the pits, just a heartbreak and lug nuts and everything. It was just crazy. The weekend was crazy for twists and turns. That's the weekend you love, the storylines of the weekend. And it isn't weather. It isn't why the track is horrible, why drivers can't see. It was organic drama and organic storylines throughout, and the commentators didn't have to say anything but react to what was going on the track.
Yeah, I completely
So I gave it an 8.
I love it. I love that.
Well, how do you rate it?
I gave it a 9.
Okay.
I loved every single second of the weekend because it was so nice to wake up for FP1 and FP2, and I'm just like, man, we get to see, because we didn't get to see last year.
Nope.
We didn't get a Monaco, but I was like, man, a Monaco race, this is gonna be great. You know, it was
this
nice.
your first time watching one?
It was. Yeah, it was actually
like live and
it was.
wow.
Absolutely. So but getting to race it on a game, you come to know how tough tracks really are.
Right.
And Monaco is a very demanding track. You have to be, like I said, on your game the entire time because one little slip up messes everything up. Practice was very cool to watch because, like you said, it's a crown jewel event. It's one of those things where they've been going to for years and years and years. It's so historic. But it's not even that. Verstappen wins, Carlos Sainz second, Ferrari, and then Lando Norris, with McLaren in third. But then you also get both Aston Martin cars finally getting in the top 10 and getting points. You get Alfa Romeo, who they only got 1 point, but Giovinazzi was 10th and Raikkonen was 11th. You don't really get to see that very often, but Aston Martin finally looks like they're finally starting to kind of turn it around. It was just one of those things that everything fell into their laps. It worked out the right way.
Yep.
And it was just crazy to see a Mercedes out off of something like that, which another pit issue. It was a shame. And then Hamilton being back there in, what was it, 7th place. It's so weird to watch a Formula One race these days and not see Hamilton in like the top 3.
It's so unusual yet so refreshing at the same time.
It is.
I really enjoyed the race. It was a very fun race to watch. But now we get to the COTA races, and not Formula One, as everybody knows, but NASCAR. We're going to start off with the Toyota Tundra 225, which is the truck series. Todd Gilliland's first win in 2021. Good for him.
Awesome. Great for them in front row.
Kaz Grala finishing second after starting second, and Paul Menard finishing 11th after starting 26th.
It was so exciting. So exciting to see that.
How do you enjoy the truck race? The truck race for me was better than I think all the Xfinity and Cup races.
Yeah, truck race was good. In general, the whole weekend was just kind of like it was kind of like a back and forth thing. I enjoyed the truck race a little bit more. I'd probably give it I'll go and rate it for you now. I'd give it a 7.
Okay.
I'd give it a 7. It was a good race. It was interesting all weekend long to see how these series were going to adapt for the first time of being there with such a short practice session. Just did not do justice enough. So it was cool to see Todd Gilliland get that win.
Yep. Definitely
something very good for him and Farmer Motorsports. They needed that. Kaz Grala, that's awesome.
Yep.
And like you said, it was just cool to see Paul Menard back, and maybe he might come back for another road race if, somebody will have him back. Because he's got a pretty decent road course background, and I kind of like that. I like seeing that. So
it was good seeing that. I rated it a 7 as well. Really nothing to write home about right there for the truck race. It's just a good race. Then we get to the Xfinity race, and here's what made me mad. At the start of the race, 4 out of the top 5 drivers were Cup regulars.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I'm already not happy with that, with Kyle Busch being in pole position. Kyle Busch won the race in dominating fashion, leading all but 9 laps of that race. One noticeable finisher, Brett Moffitt, started 21st, finishing 12th. But here's what my problem is. 4 out of the 5 on an inaugural track in a series where their points don't matter, but they're taking away points from series regulars.
Mm-hmm.
We say this again. We say it all the time. Cup drivers racing for Cup championships should not be, that are in full-time Cup Series competition, should not be racing in lower divisions, regardless if they're for points or not.
So I have something for you. Because, I don't really have too much of a problem if they were only race a couple of races out of the year.
No, I don't want them to race any races
Here's
whatsoever.
something for you. I agree with you here on this one because this is an inaugural weekend. Why should they get to race in another series and gain that advantage and be ahead of the other Cup regulars? Right. Why don't we just all be on the same playing field and level playing field for a weekend, an inaugural weekend? You have to race in the series that you race in, and that's it. So we're all in the same field, and we're all trying to learn at the same time. Why is it that they get to go to the Xfinity Series, run a day before, like Kyle Busch gets to dominate, and then he gets to go out there and dominate the Cup Series,
and almost
even if
win.
it was in the rain, almost winning. He's got that advantage of getting to race the day before, and those... Oh, man, I know all about this track, and with it being in the rain, I think I've already got an advantage because now I know I need to brake a little bit sooner for all these other turns. So I agree with you on this one. Yeah, right here. It's ridiculous.
And this is a broken record that constantly comes up on our show when Kyle Busch goes down to the lower division. I wouldn't even just keep him in there. Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., anybody who races full-time in the Cup Series... Better yet, here's what I'm going to say. All of those drivers I just named, Truex, Elliott, and Kyle Busch, are Cup Series champions. If you're a Cup Series champion, you should not be able to allow to race in the lower divisions. Period.
Yeah, right. And it goes...
And that goes for Kevin Harvick. Mm-hmm. That goes for... Who else is it? Keselowski, Logano. If you want a Cup Series champion, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, out there and... Give us your opinion on what you think. If you won a Cup Series championship, you should not be allowed to race in the Xfinity Series. You should not be allowed to race in the Truck Series. And you should not be able to gain an advantage on the competition like that. If you're the best of the best in that series, which Cup Series champions are, don't race. You can't race in lower divisions, period.
I agree. And So I want to throw I know that I elaborated. It was a long time ago that I elaborated on this one, but I had called into a local radio show before because they were talking. This was years ago. They were talking about Kyle Busch racing in lower series.
Right.
And I said, why does he need to be there? And they said, well, most of the time it has to do with sponsorship, and certain sponsors want those kind of drivers to race in that series. And I understand that. And here I get that. But NASCAR should put something out there that, you know what? If NASCAR wants to make things exciting, if it's an inaugural weekend, they should just flat out across the board say, no, nobody gets to race in any other series, because NASCAR at this point likes to say that they're trying to make it exciting. Well, if they want to make it exciting, they should put us into that if it's an inaugural weekend.
They should.
You should just run in your series, and that's it, because you're going to have to learn just along with everybody else when we drop that green flag.
They will, and it's unfortunate. And for that, I gave what could have been a very exciting Xfinity Series race a 5.
I gave it a 5 as well. I almost rated it a little bit lower than that,
and
but
it's because Kyle Busch.
It's just
it shouldn't be the Kyle Busch show, in my opinion. I mean, drivers, full-time drivers, busting their butts in there like Justin Allgaier.
It really,
but they take it away from those drivers.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it really annoys me as to why we even have a race on a Saturday when it's just going to be those guys that are just dominating the entire time, trying to figure out a track for when they race the next day. Why even have it then if they're just those guys are going to be dominating the entire time?
Yeah, again, like drivers that are Junior Motorsports, the Arnett's, the Allgaiers, the Gregsons. We'll just take Junior Motorsports, for instance, because that's the team I usually look at in the Xfinity Series, trying to make a name for themselves for their sponsors, but then just getting dominated by that. I mean, how would Bass Pro Shop feel if their name isn't on a Martin Truex car, but on a Noah Gragson's car and being beat by a Cup Series champion? And to me, that's a 5. We could go down the rabbit hole all day about this. And this is a squeaky wheel issue. It always comes up every time this happens. If it were me, and I almost shut it off because Kyle Busch did race it. It was a boring race overall because Kyle Busch did race it. Best racing was for second. Whatever. 5. The Cup race. The cluster of that race.
This is where I've coined this, and I love saying this phrase because I'm saying it a lot more often these days. This was a classic NASCAR being NASCAR at this point in my eyes. Well,
let's break it down here. For Chase Elliott winning his first race, now all Hendrick drivers have at least one win in 2021. That's one. Hendrick finished 1-2 again, 2 cars in the top 5, in the top 2. So Elliott and Larson again having a great run. 3, Hendrick ties Richard Petty Motorsports for 268 on all-time wins as an organization. Now we get into the weeds here. Because we kind of hit onto it on what you think. The race itself started in somewhat damp conditions. Teams had a chance to go on wet or slick tires or wet tires. And I don't mind that. I think it should be left up to the teams depending on the conditions of the track. Now, do I feel like NASCAR teams have the experience like a Formula One team does and says, look at the track and say, okay, we're going with this?
Right. Because
no, they don't.
We're talking about 2 different cars in general.
Right. Well, not only that, we're talking about 2 different levels of experience. How many times have you seen it throughout even this year where there were dry, wet conditions and saying, okay, we're going to go on either intermediates or wets, and then throughout the course of the race say, okay, now we're going to throw on the softs or the hards.
Yeah.
They know that. They've years and years of experience, hundreds of years probably in the Mercedes room alone, just to tell us when the cars should switch over from one set of tires to another or one compound to another. NASCAR doesn't have that. Now, the crew chiefs can make an educated guess whether, just like we saw a handful of drivers start on slicks. We saw drivers like Michael McDowell start on wets, which is fine for me. That should be left up to the teams, because if you mess up, you're going to pay for it on the first lap. You're going to figure it out real fast. We saw a number of cars fit in within the first 2 laps because of that. So I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. That was okay. That was an interesting part of the race. You figured it out.
And right. Austin Cindric went quite a distance on slicks too.
Austin Cindric was dominating, but I think because he had the
he's had that experience before too.
He has the experience. He had the clean air. and no one in front of him to cause anything
all that
crazy.
Visibility issue.
I think there was a lot of factors in there, but Cindric, well, okay, this guy might go up and upset today. What do you think about that?
What?
The tires.
It's, yes, leaving it up to the teams right before the race, bringing them down pit road during pace laps. If you want to change, that's cool. No, teams should have been looking at the radar at that point, because a lot of people were probably like, you know what, hey, it's already rained. We're going to keep the wets on because it was already raining in the forecast anyways.
Yeah.
Why not just leave the wets on? So I understand this is new to NASCAR, because leaving the teams up to it, they don't really know. They didn't get to practice in rain, so we don't really know what it's going to be
right.
like.
But they do have the rain experience from Daytona.
A little bit, yeah.
But they have that knowledge. They have the crew chief should have that in their notebook. I'm like, okay, and from last year's Roval race where it rained as well, and it's like, oh, okay, well, at this point we can start going on slicks or wets or vice versa. They have an idea, but like I said, not as much as Formula One. But I cut you off. I apologize.
Right? No. That's good. No, I mean, whatever. That's what I had to say. I mean, it's nice. I understand the tire situation. Leave it up to the teams. That's great. It seems like the wets were pretty much going to work for the duration of the race.
Right.
I'm surprised that some people even wanted to put slicks on. Me watching it, and commentators saying, "Oh, some guys are going to opt for slicks." I'm thinking to myself, I would have just stayed on wets right away. I don't know what it's going to be like out there. I don't know how wet. I mean, different elevation changes. It can be more wet in certain part of the tracks than other parts of the tracks because you maybe have some runoff.
Right.
You're talking about a big hill climb into turn one. Maybe most of maybe the track is more wet down on the flat than when you get up there, because maybe some of the water is run down. I'm keeping wets on no matter what, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how wet the track is.
Right.
Commentators want to say, "Oh, the track may have dried out. The track might be a little warm." Some teams could do that. That's fine. If you want to put slicks on, cool. But I'm keeping wets on because I have no idea what's going on. It looks like it's going to rain. I'm going to stay ahead of the curve here.
Right.
And we saw that. Guys came and put slicks on, and they're pitting 2 laps later. As soon as the race starts, it just looked like a cluster, which was, hey, that's the way strategy worked out.
That's the way strategy worked out. But then you get to the elephant in the room, and that was visibility. Visibility was a big issue this weekend, more so Sunday, with the rain and everything going on. And I got a clip here from Kevin Harvick, and I want you to listen to it and tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
We don't have any business being out in the rain, period. So, all I can say is this is the worst decision that we've ever made in our sport that I've been a part of, and I've never felt more unsafe in my whole racing career, period.
Your thoughts on that, Preston? Because when I listen to that, I hear a very frustrated veteran of the sport, 20-year veteran of the sport, who got involved in an accident because he got rear-ended, much like we saw Truex happen to Truex, both to and from, which took out Bubba Wallace, which took out Christopher Bell, a lot of contenders. Visibility was an issue from dropping the green flag until when NASCAR called the race. Does Kevin Harvick have a point there? And did NASCAR put drivers in unnecessary risk for a race?
Okay, I'll try not to rant on this one.
No, go ahead, rant, because this is our show, and we can rant if we want.
I'll try not to, but Kevin Harvick makes a valid point.
Right.
I completely 100% agree, and I totally get it after watching the race today and seeing the unnecessary bullcrap that we had to deal with Martin Truex Jr. running into the back of somebody. They're going down a straightaway that is you're going fast, and I understand that some guys don't feel. Some guys might. It was a tight hairpin that we're coming to, and I understand some people are thinking, we might have to break a little bit early. So Truex runs into somebody. And then Cole Custer comes along, probably doesn't even see him until the last second, and just absolutely bombs the crap out of him and sends him flying into the air.
Which, that wasn't Custer's fault. Custer didn't see him either.
Exactly. So this whole thing I completely agree with. I'm 100% on board with Kevin Harvick here. One thing's for sure right here. NASCAR has no business running in the rain. I thought maybe they could pull it off, something like that. But they're right. There is no business running in the rain. If there are puddles on the track and they're hydroplaning, yeah, absolutely, because a stock car is not made to run on wet conditions like that. It's not like an open wheel car, Formula One car, because water gets stuck up in a wheel well in a stock car, and you are going to hydroplane. It's not like an open wheel car where you can just run over a puddle and the water just goes straight up in the air.
Right.
You don't have that water to just bounce around in the wheel well, and then you're just hydroplaning, scared for your life on ice almost.
Which goes to the fact that what we talked about in the opening thoughts and what you think is NASCAR, in order to approve a road course for competition, drainage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just this. It's when you talk about visibility, here's an idea. And I talked about you on the show, and I'm just going to throw it out there real quick. The stages don't help because that stacks the cars up, and that alone gives you no visibility because as soon as that green flag drops, everybody goes from running 2, double file restart to 5 wide going into turn 1. Everybody's going this way, that way. Some guys are sliding through one, taking everybody to almost to the gravel. NASCAR, all these cars are running off the track trying to get, and commentators are like, oh yeah, they're going to run way off to get the best they can. No, that's not how a road course works.
Right.
It doesn't, and I'm used to Formula One being, there are track limits, even in wet. If you're running off the track, you're going to get a warning for that. NASCAR is just like, hey, let them run all the way to freaking Egypt and come back onto the track.
Right.
And maybe they won't take anybody out. We saw A.J. Allmendinger slide all the way off the track. He had to avoid the grass at the last second, almost ran into somebody coming back onto the track.
Right.
But he's right, visibility, there's no, I wanted to give it a chance. Oh, maybe it would work. It absolutely does not work. Visibility with you're going from, I'm thinking Formula One, we have 20 cars on track. NASCAR, we have, 39 cars on track. Rooster tails are flying up everywhere. Yeah, because you have 39 cars on the track trying to vie for positions, even though the track is wide. It's dangerous. It was asinine at this point. It's just ridiculous.
Now, this is the second time this year that visibility has come up, that last one being the Bristol dirt track. And it was the second time this year where NASCAR said no double file restarts, single file. The last time was at Bristol dirt.
Right.
NASCAR, I feel, is trying to make the unorganic excitement come out. Put dirt on Bristol. It'll make it fun. Let's race Circuit of Americas. Fans want more road courses. I think after today, fans are going to seriously question the decision that NASCAR is making on their choice of road courses. But again, if you ask me, Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and the Roval are the only road courses that should be on the Cup calendar. I didn't want to see Circuit of Americas as it started out with, so it already started off on the wrong foot as far as the expectation level of Circuit of America. Now, what does this do for Road America? Are we going to see the same thing at Road America? Are we going to see the same thing at Indianapolis Road Course? Are we going to see the same thing at Watkins Glen, at the Roval, at Sonoma? Is the expectation going to be so low that no matter if it's a photo finish at any of those races, is it going to be that race was boring?
Yeah.
Or if it rains, NASCAR should have done this. NASCAR should have learned from Daytona Road Course and Circuit of the Americas to prevent this from happening. Because right now the schedule is set in stone. You can't say, no, we're going from the road course of Indianapolis to the Oval.
Yeah.
It's too late for that. You can't do that. You can't say we're taking Road America off and adding a second Dover race. You can't do that. Unfortunately, NASCAR has their hands tied with this, and NASCAR needs to find a way to make it better. Not just for the driver's safety, which is paramount over anything else, but for what is expected from the track as far as the drainage, what's expected from the track as far as the lights, and maybe as far as for the teams, have like mud flap type things over there to deter the water. That might be causing its own issue on its own, but instead of it going rooster tailing, have it go out horizontally.
Yeah.
Just something. And a simple $5 part could probably fix that. Just a couple pieces of rubber like a mud flap. Could probably prevent water from rooster tailing up. And I think you're going to have rooster tailing a little bit.
You will have it.
But instead of going up, at least it's going to the side, and that might be causing a little more problems because you're pushing water into somebody else's car. But I'm not choosing to race in the rain on road courses.
Yeah. Here's my take. and I'm not, this is just as a frustrated fan's point of view. First off, the rooster tail thing. A lot of people complain on Twitter about it. Well, here's an idea. You should have already noticed that, like we said before, this is a Formula One heavy track. You have 2 long straightaways.
Yeah.
You're going to get high speed, so you're going to get a lot of rooster tail with something like this. We see it in F1 too.
Yeah,
we see that
all the time.
But you, like I said, you also don't have 39 other cars on track. You have 20. And,
I don't think the amount of cars makes a difference.
But it's not just that. Here's my thing as well, and I hate to say it because I keep saying it again and again, but NASCAR is screwing this up big time because what was NASCAR before? Like they said, they wanted to try to get new fans into the sport. Correct? Am I not wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Here's an idea. I agree with Harvick on this whole it's dangerous, but let's not look at it this way too. The race was a crap show to begin with because we're trying to race in rain. Everybody's all over the place.
We're racing the daylight.
Yeah. But the race is much slower because we're racing in rain and it's wet. 68 laps at Circuit of the Americas. It took almost just about dang near 4 hours. Newsflash, NASCAR. Nobody knew was going to want to sit through a 4-hour race. Especially a race that looks like this, which if you call that exciting, there was nothing exciting about that one bit.
And if you're a fan at the track, you're sitting there in the rain, which kudos to you because that's way more dedication than I think I even have for the sport of NASCAR. Sitting there in the rain, and when that final red flag came out for a weather delay, NASCAR fans saw the writing on the wall and were starting to leave.
Yeah, it just...
And that's not what you want to see.
It does not make sense that we have a red flag earlier for an accident that was dangerous as all can get out because Cole Custer's car caught on fire pretty much immediately.
Yeah, and then he's getting out with drivers coming down. Coming down that same road, could have hydroplaned, hit Custer as he's trying to get out or out of the vehicle.
Exactly. It's just...
There was a lot of moving parts that could have happened wrong.
Ridiculousness at this point. It's not just safety. It's NASCAR thinks that... Oh, we're doing a good job of making it exciting. There was nothing exciting about it.
Right.
It took way too long. I thought, like I said, this track is way too long to even run on, let alone if it's wet, you're driving even slower. The race is, we're like watching in slow motion.
I'm sure there's a way they could reconfigure it
and
make it shorter, but I don't know.
The fans that could be out there, new fans that like to say, oh, we like to see it for the wrecks. I can promise you there was nothing cool about seeing those accidents today because it was absolutely dangerous, and I 100% agree with Kevin Harvick. Visibility, it's too dangerous. We should have not even gotten to that point. And then when they decided, and what really made me angry is when they threw that last red flag and drivers were getting out of their cars.
Yeah, once I heard you could get out of the car if you want,
like,
it's like that's it. Race is
They're
over.
going to call it. And then NASCAR wants to come on Twitter, or somebody tweeted out, I think Jeff Gluck did, or I can't remember who it was, that one of the top guys in NASCAR addressed to the media said, hey, we messed it up. Yeah, you're dang right you messed it up. You messed up a lot of things this weekend.
And we'll just have to wait and see. I think Road America is the next road course race. We'll wait and see if they maybe get their act together. Not going to hold my breath, though. This is they're 0 for 2 for me this year for road course races.
Overall, in general, Circuit of the Americas is, I don't care if it's dry. We do not need to be back there next year. It's just one of those tracks that is, to me, it didn't seem exciting. Yes, cars are sliding around in other series, but it's like watching slow motion. To me, I can't watch something like that because it's too big of a road course with too many turns, and it's a stock car. Yes, they're low to the ground, like I've said before, but it's not an open wheel car, which has got a wider wheelbase where they can run faster. I'm telling you, fans out there that don't watch Formula One, watch a Formula One race and then go back and watch a NASCAR race on a road course, and it's like watching night and day at how fast a race gets done.
No, I think Monaco, as far as its twists and turns, the average Formula One race an hour and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that time, Formula One even has it in writing. If we can't get this race done within a 4-hour period, if there are red flags, we're calling it wherever. Yeah. With NASCAR, we're persistent, and they keep moving it back a day if they have to.
But you can't blame NASCAR for that. If I spend good money on a race ticket, I want to see the race.
But that's the thing about Formula One, though. They can race in the rain, and they don't have as many problems.
Yeah, well,
so that's where you have the two different series.
That. Anything else, man? Because
so do you want to go ahead and rate it?
Yeah, well, here, noticeable finishers first.
Yeah.
Ross Chastain started 20th, finished 4th. Great run for him in that Chip Ganassi car. He good top 5. He needed that. And Daytona 500 winner Michael McDowell starting 23rd, finishing 7th. Another great showing for Front Row Motorsports. But that was about all I can write positively about the race. I rated it a bit higher than the Xfinity race. I gave it a 7.
Wow. Okay.
And I gave it a 7 only because during the times where it wasn't downpouring, it was good racing. I didn't like the fact, and I've said it before, I don't like road courses. There was a significant gap between first and the second place pack, I should say, where I think Kyle Busch had a 5-second gap on everybody, but everybody's racing for second. The end of stage 2 was pretty awesome, where all those cars racing for position were just in a cluster there. But I think that's what fans expect at every race, the closeness of the cars and the competitiveness. It wasn't a complete bust for me. I think if NASCAR wants to bring Circuit of the America back for it, they do need to make changes to the car. And when they do come back, the next gen car will be out. But more so changes to the track. They need a drainage system. They need lights. I truly believe at every NASCAR sanctioned track, lights should be required in case we do get in a position like this. Flip on the lights. We can race no matter what. It's just one of those things where we never had this problem really at Sonoma. We never really had this problem at Watkins Glen where it was raining a lot. And if it does rain, rain tires are kind of a new thing for NASCAR. I think NASCAR will fix it. I think NASCAR is like I said, double barrel shotgun to the face, getting criticism from everybody, from drivers, team owners, fans, track officials, everybody about this. And I think they will fix it. So I'm optimistic for NASCAR, as much as I kind of bashed him. And I'm sure I kind of contradicted myself earlier in the show, but that's what I think. I think it was a 7. How would you rate it?
3.
A 3.
3 out of 10.
Okay.
NASCAR, stop trying to be like a sports car series championship.
Well,
I like road courses, but this was just a big, and I just want to say real quick, the whole weekend in general, I thought it was a bust. I thought it could have been better. I think the Xfinity race could have been fun without Kyle Busch or any of the Cup Series drivers in there. The truck race was good. The Xfinity race could have been better. And the Cup race was just plagued from disasters from the start. I just don't think that Circuit of Americas needs to be back on it. I think it was just too slow of a course. I'd say I agree with you. Watkins Glen, Sonoma works. The Roval even works well. It's a nice road course that's compacted inside of Charlotte.
And you can see everything.
We can see everything. I think that anything over maybe 3 miles long at this point, it's just too much. If it's got too many turns, it's just too slow.
You make a point.
Sorry, NASCAR, but not sorry at the same time, looking at it from the fan perspective.
What would be your race of the weekend?
Monaco.
Mine would be Monaco as well. My first time ever picking Formula One is race of the weekend.
And I just, I feel for the guys that were just frustrated saying, I feel for Kevin Harvick when he says, you could truly hear.
By the way, that was from NBC Sports.
Yeah, you can truly hear just
I think Jim Utter, actually.
How angry he was about it. And after hearing it, I totally understand it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It was dangerous. It's just NASCAR just needs to take a step back and say, you know what, we can't do that again. We'll have to, if it's raining again, maybe we don't race in the rain, but if it's wet, we'll still race. But if it's raining, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe
it depends on the level of rain.
Right.
Because a little mist isn't going to hurt you. A little light drizzle isn't going to kill you. But maybe they got to maybe have it inches per hour.
Yeah.
Or a level. They got to have some type of cutoff here. I think it needs to get a little more organized there before they go, and completely agree with you. Upcoming races. No Formula One race this weekend. Next weekend it will be the Baku
at Azerbaijan. I love that track.
Cup Series, big weekend for them. The one of the crown jewels of the series, the longest race of the series, Coca-Cola 600. Excited about that. I always loved the Coke 600. I've always enjoyed it. I've only been to one. Wanted to go this year. However, circumstances came up to where I couldn't go. I'm looking forward to that race.
I have been to the Coke 600 a few times.
Okay.
I always it's a long race. It's definitely one of those.
But it's such a fun how they do it.
It's a great atmosphere. Let's see. I think it was the Coke 600. It was one year where Junior looked like he was going to win it, and then he ran out of gas.
Bummer.
And Harvick passed him.
Won.
Oh man, everybody in the stands. It was just like I don't even know how to compare it. Everybody was cheering, and then he slowed, and everybody just went, "Oh." And it was just like, oh man, like everybody was
the wind
so
was taken out. Oh man, but the Coke 600 is always a fun race. Make sure to check out Race Day Unhinged, noon on the Unhinged Sports Network, for everything you need to know, including our hot lap, which that was a lot of fun. Circuit America's hot lap didn't work out, but this should be a little better for me, I should say. The Xfinity Race, what's that?
The Allsco.
Xfinity Race, the Allsco Uniforms 300 at Charlotte, another long event for Xfinity Series standards at Charlotte. That's going to be May 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern. By the way, Coke 600, May 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern, so a good transition into night race. A couple of our friends will be there from Fast Lap, Chrissy and Deb. Have fun there. It's going to be a lot of fun for them. Truck Race, North Carolina Educational Lottery 200 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, May 28th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be a fun race to watch. And I say this is going to be tough to pick between both. The Indianapolis 500, 101st running of the Indianapolis 500 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Sunday, May 30th at 11 a.m. on NBC. That's going to be a fun Indy race, and the Indy 500 is always a spectacle, always fun to watch, always something crazy that happens every year there. I remember one year, I think it was Scott Dixon, who hit a car and just into the catch fence. That was crazy. So, quick expectations on the Cup Xfinity Truck Race as well as the Indy race.
Expectations, I think NASCAR will kind of get back to business as usual because we're going back to a track that has been on the NASCAR calendar forever.
Right. Pretty much since its inception.
Yeah. So I think we'll get back to business as usual for the 600 at least. Maybe we see some excitement. I always like the 600 because, like you said, it transitions from day to night. And
right.
It's always fun to see teams try to stay on top of that strategy and try to adapt to the conditions when the sun goes down and that track temperature gets cooler and you're able to get a little bit more grip in the car. 400 laps, it's a long race.
It is a long race. Very long race.
As far as Indy goes, I don't really know. In past years, it is fun to watch Indy. It's always, it's cool to see those cars going around that track so fast.
Oh, 240 plus miles an hour.
Yeah, it's wild. I think we could be in for a wild weekend, but I think Sunday will be that excitement because we won't have Monaco like we usually do, but it's always a great time knowing Memorial Day weekend is coming and you get Indy and the Coke 600 in the same day.
Right. I expect a good race from the Coke 600 as long as Truex doesn't lead
392 laps
like that of
1
the
year.
400 laps. I want to see a good race, and I expect we will. Truck and Xfinity race, I expect good races as well as long as a Cup Series regular, Kyle Busch, does not enter in that event and steal the show. IndyCar, up in the air. It could be anybody's race. We might do an actual special race day show for that. Ask Jim if we can release it a little earlier. I think that will do well. We'll do everything we do on the regular show, bring you everything you need to know about that. But anything else, man? I think that almost wraps it up before our final thoughts here.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else.
Before we wrap up today's show, I wanted to take a moment to remind everybody out there in the Marbles Nation about our partnership with Fanatics. Fanatics is a proud partner of the Unhinged Sports Network, which we here at In the Marbles are the voice of racing. If you head over to inthemarbles.net under the Partners tab, there you will find a link to Fanatics, and it'll take you right to their NASCAR store, where you can find all your favorite drivers' hats, t-shirts, diecast, and more. But you don't have to just stop there. I buy all my Alabama Crimson Tide gear there, and Preston buys all his South Carolina Gamecock gear there as well. All purchases help out the Unhinged Sports Network, bringing you the best sports coverage 24/7 at unhingedsn.com. Make sure to head over to the Unhinged Sports Network to listen to your favorite shows, not just In the Marbles, but all your sports podcast needs, such as football, basketball, hockey, and yes, racing. That's unhingedsn.com.
White flag, white flag. flag. White flag. 1 lap to go. 1 lap right here.
All right, getting into our final thoughts here on this. I can't believe it. 88th episode of the show. Thank you all for tuning in to us again. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, hashtag what you think ITM. And again, it will be up here if you're watching YouTube and in the description of the podcast notes. Use that. Tell us what you think. You might be on the show. And we'll give you our opinion on it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Q&A thing.
Yeah.
Q&A thing. In the Marbles 2.0 standings following the Circuit of the America race, SMR R&D still in the lead with 26-15, leading the pack by a significant amount over Matt Camper. SMR Operations, you, third. S-Blades, fourth. So the tie's over for me. I'm in fifth here with 2,471. Smokin' Woody, sixth. Unhinged Racing, seventh. Chuck 8384, eighth. 43andMe, which I just found out was your brother Brandon.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he's not even in the 2000s. He's a couple away. He hasn't broken that yet.
I think you forgot to set his lineup this week.
Well, that's his fault. Summers Racing, Bun 3, and Shake and Bake. Do you know who any of those guys are, Bun 3 and Shake and Bake?
No.
Well,
I don't think so.
They were scoring 0 points. I'm thinking they're pretty much just done with it. Oh, well. Driver of the week this week here at In the Marbles is a driver who I'm surprised we haven't done. Has since retired, but raced last year. Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, we have not done him.
2003 NASCAR Winston Cup champion from Cambridge, Wisconsin, born March 10th, 1972. Like I said, 2003 Cup Series champion, which I think was the pushing factor in developing the chase format because he dominated that and we wanted a more interesting series, and that snowballed into what we have now. Topic for another show. 2004 IROC Series champion, 2009 and 2012 Daytona 500 winner, 2000 Coke 600, which pop quiz. His first race victory came at what track and when?
Oh boy,
Come on, I just gave you the answer.
Oh, at Charlotte?
The 2000 Coke 600 was his first victory. 2012, 2014 Budweiser dual winner, 2015 Sprint Unlimited winner, and beat out Dale Earnhardt Jr. for the 2000 Winston Cup Rookie of the Year. 697 races over a 22-year career. So I wish he could have just ran 3 more just to get that break into that 700 club. He didn't. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. First race coming into 1998 MBNA Gold 400 at Dover. Last race coming at the 2020 season finale 500 at Phoenix. That is literally the name of the race. Oh, boy. First win coming, as we discussed, at the 2000 Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. And now last win coming at the 2017 Can-Am 500 at Phoenix. 39 wins over his historic 22-year career. And I dare say a Hall of Fame career in the future. 331 top 10s, 20 poles. Matt Kenseth, your driver of the week this week here at In the Marbles. Had the pleasure of seeing him win twice. One in New Hampshire and one in Pocono. So I saw Matt Kenseth win 2 out of those 39 races.
Think, that Bojangles Southern 500, I think I did see him win that one.
And again, as is customary, you found it.
Sure.
This week in NASCAR.
This week in NASCAR, May the 24th of 1987, Kyle Petty survives a day of heavy attrition and captures Charlotte's Coca-Cola 600 for his first super speedway win, giving the Wood brothers their 70th super speedway win.
Now,
iconic Wood brothers team. That's pretty cool. So
and they're still only one away from 100.
Still looking for that illustrious.
Still looking like for that 100.
100.
But once that happens, it will be a party for them, their driver, and their fan base.
Do you think DiBenedetto will get the 100, or do you think Cindric does next year?
I'm starting to doubt DiBenedetto a lot more, unfortunately. And it isn't because of his lack of trying. I think it's
just a bad luck.
Maybe bad luck. It's just one of those things where
everybody I think everybody usually has something like that happen in their career where they just can't catch a break.
Yeah, but this guy's been racing in the Cup Series now for how many years? And he has not caught a break.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. A couple top 5s here and there, but that's it. You got to run in there consistently to finish first, and It's just not happening for DiBenedetto. I think that's a topic for our mid-season race show. You don't want to miss that. Again, folks, Race Day Unhinged exclusively on the Unhinged Sports Network. We'll let you know if we're going to do an Indy 500 special or definitely a Coca-Cola 500 special. Preston, anything else before we wrap up this interesting episode?
No, nothing else, actually.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up then. I'd like to thank everybody so much for tuning into us this week here at In the Marbles. Make sure to follow In the Marbles on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you like the show, subscribe to the show, whether it's on YouTube or your podcast platform, to stay up to date on any new releases that we have in the future. For Preston Lude, I'm Matt Beamer. Thank you so much for tuning into us this week. Stay safe and have a good rest of your week.